Hey, hey, Strong Girls Nation. Welcome to our last Chalk Talk of this series that we've put on this spring of 2020. Today we have AJ Mleczko. I feel so fortunate she joined us to share her story from youth through being part of the first Olympics that had women's hockey, where she and Team USA won a gold medal, to now serving as an on-air analyst for NBC and the NHL. We titled this If She Can See It, She Can Dream It, and She Can Be It, a saying you have probably heard before and you will hear AJ say in our talk, but both in her role as a player and now in her profession, she's a perfect example of showing young girls all that they can do. Her story is so fun, so let's get right to it. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm hoping that you can start by just sharing a little bit about your story in sport and growing up.
Well, thanks for having me. It's so fun to interact with people and talk about sports and talk about my background. And right now, I feel like we're all going through such crazy, weird times that it's nice to remember a little bit of normalcy and what life used to be like and how I got where I was. So I grew up outside of New York City in Southern Connecticut, and I have an older sister and a younger brother. And my father was a teacher at the school right across the street and a coach. He coached football, hockey, and lacrosse. My mom owned a shop. So we were sort of in the town and didn't commute into New York like a lot of the families did, or a lot of the parents did. So, for me, I grew up around a rink. It was right next door to us, and it was an outdoor rink. It's very different than now in terms of these rinks that are open 12 months a year. I mean, it would open after Thanksgiving, and that first weekend in March, it was always a little dicey because it got a little warm, and the blue lines are made of cloth, so they would attract more of the heat from the sun, so you might trip over the blue line. So it was a much shorter season, and there's a pond. Hardin Pond was right next to it, which would freeze over, and usually January and February we'd get pond skating. So we would be able to walk to the rink. When I was, my older sister, my younger brother, and I were all put on skates at about age two or three, and we would, it was sort of just what we did. My sister and I were on figure skates, and my brother eventually was put on hockey skates. And I think I was about 5 when I asked, and I don't remember this, but I asked to play hockey because I guess it looked more fun to me. So my dad was actually thrilled. People always ask me, how did your parents react to this? And my dad thought it was great. He was the coach of the bantam team, which is like 8th grade-ish. So the older kids, but he let me play, and a lot of the parents thought it was sort of a novelty and a little bit cute, a little weird, but cute. And my older sister kept going. My parents did make me continue the figure skating because they were big on, staying with your commitments and they didn't want this to just be a flash in the pan and go do, something one day and another thing another day. So in the morning, we'd actually figure skate before school because we could walk there, go figure skate, get our lessons done, and then walk to school, and then we could go back, and I would, they play hockey either on the pond or the rink. They had general skating, and they would partition an area of the ice off for stick and puck play. So we did a lot of that. I was a rinker. I could get my homework done. There was a big fireplace there, and these couches that were made of like orange vinyl, which are like forever imprinted into my mind. Could sit there and do homework until my dad's team would practice, and then I'd go home with him. So it was all we knew, really. And when I say that, it wasn't all year long, right? It was a short season. So we were able to do that. There weren't girls that played at the time. So my parents were very supportive, and my dad thought it was great. And a quick funny story, he outfitted me from the lost and found bin. So all this gear that mismatched didn't really fit me, but he, again, didn't want to go buy me a ton of gear if it was something I didn't want to play. And he included a protective cup, and girls wear different cups now, but certainly didn't need that. And it was I got out there, that is not very comfortable. So he quickly realized that was a piece of equipment I didn't need. But I loved it. I cruised around. I was the only girl on a boys team at the time. I don't know that I recognized it. I don't know that it was something that I even registered, that it was different or unique or weird or all these different things that some people had said. And some, I think as I went through mites, which is a really young age, no travel team. And I remember when the first time there was a travel team available to kids it was squirts, which is about age 9. And the ages have changed through the years, but it's about that age. And I tried out for the travel team, and I remember my coach was a man named Bill Emmons. And I'll be forever grateful for him and his support. And he did call my parents, now I know later, ahead of me making the team, and said, are you comfortable with this? Are you comfortable with her making this travel team? She'll be the only girl. She deserves it. She's earned it. But, you know, it's different. It's unique. And my parents got right on board. They loved it. And so from the beginning, I had people in my corner that supported me. And as long as I was having fun, then they were going to help me figure out how to continue doing it. I played through sports and peewees, and then when I got close to bantams, it was body checking, which was a whole different game, and same game, same hockey game, but it's obviously a different situation when you have a girl playing with the boys, and then my dad was the coach too. So there was that actually in some ways made it a little bit more palatable to some of the parents that watched, because they thought, okay, well, her dad's the coach. The irony, of course, is my dad was one of those people that he was a tough love kind of guy. So if things got rough out in the ice, he would put me out there. He would never take me. If I got a big hit, he would always put me out the next shift. I mean, he would recognize if I was really injured, which I never was. But he was, if I'm going to be out there, then I'm going to play the way that he expects everybody to play. And he certainly didn't give me any treatment above and no, he didn't. I mean, when we got home, he was very, we would talk hockey, he would tell me stuff, but he was actually really tough on me, and he would make me do extra sprints. And around that age, I also played for the team at the school, which he coached. So I had him for 2 teams, and I was the only girl on both. And he basically explained to me, though, I was old enough to understand. He said, you have to be better than, you can't be the weakest kid on this team, and you can't even be in the middle of the road. You've got to be better than everybody else to prove that you belong here. And that was sort of it was a rallying cry for me, and it was something that motivated me. And not everybody's wired that way. But I took it as a challenge, and I enjoyed it. And I will say that the guys that I played with throughout, you grow up with these pretty much same team with a couple changes here and there, were awesome. I mean, they treated me so well. I was like a sister to them. It wasn't like I joined in middle school. I was a little kid with them, and we grew up. I was in the locker room with them. It wasn't a big deal. I do remember my 9th grade year I was playing, and some of the girls came to watch. My friends came to watch the game. They're not watching me. They're watching the boys. And it's the age of, girls and boys. And they were down by the locker rooms, and one of the players on our team, I was sitting by the door. He said, AJ, you got to close the door. There are girls outside. I'm changing. Looked at him. I was like, well, wait, what am I? But I actually took it as a compliment. I mean, that wasn't an insult to me. I loved being one of the guys. I loved being included. I loved having the relationship I had with them. The adversity that I faced was the people I played against. And often it was the parents and the people in the stands that didn't like a braid sticking out the back of my helmet, which is why when I was in 4th grade, I got my hair cut really short. I used to be called Jamie, which is what the J in my name stands for. It's Allison Jamie. And around that time, I changed it to AJ. I just wanted to fit in. Then I got up to the Bantam, and I grew my hair long again because I actually took pride in it. I was a little bit older, and I liked being the only girl on the team, and I liked that attention to me. It motivated me. And I also knew that I had the support of my teammates, my family, my club that I played for. And so I think that was, going into other rinks. And if, when I did get to the checking age, as I said, I had a background in figure skating. So I was a good skater. When these guys would come and try to take huge hits at me, I was a little more agile on my skate so I could get out of the way. So I wasn't super physical. I wasn't going to be throwing my, huge checks around, but just by getting out of the way, they would hit the boards hard. And then suddenly it's like, and people would be like, she shouldn't be playing with the boys. And they would always put it in the terms of they were worried about me getting hurt. And my father, luckily, and my mom were both really supportive and said, when we feel like she's in danger, we'll pull her off the ice. And they never felt like I was in danger. So then from there, after 9th grade, I went away to boarding school. I went to Taft in Connecticut, which is the first year that I played exclusively with girls. In 8th and 9th grade, I had actually started playing a little bit with a statewide girls team in addition to the other teams that I played for. All girls, but we only played boys teams. So it was sort of interesting. But it was the first time I realized that there are other girls out there. There are other girls that love this sport. There are other girls that play. And it was a very strange thing to be in a locker room with girls and then go to Taft and as a sophomore in high school, suddenly only be with girls. I got a lot of penalties. There's no checking in girls hockey. And I just come from playing boys checking hockey. And I suddenly grew too. I mean, I'm 5'11", and I started growing at that point and got big. But it was an amazing experience, and I would never, ever give up my experience playing with the boys. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. But I also, it was a whole new world to suddenly have a locker room full of girls, the people that shared my passion. And there was it was a different thing, and it was wonderful. And I played 3 sports at Taft. I played field hockey, and lacrosse, and I loved all of them. Hockey was certainly my true love. I knew I wanted to play it in college, but I love the other experiences too. And I get a little frustrated in this day and age right now. I have 4 kids now, and there's so much attention on specializing in sports from a very young age. And I think you give up so much by not playing other sports. And I tell my kids, I've got, my oldest daughter is really into lacrosse, and my second daughter is really into hockey. And by playing other sports, it actually makes them better at the sport that they want to specialize in, they want to focus on. So I love that I was able to play 3 sports at Taft. I went on to Harvard and played hockey. I did play a little bit of lacrosse at the beginning of my freshman year, but then made the national team for hockey, which took a lot of my spring, basically huge commitments through the spring with the school and everything. So at that point, I'd given up field hockey and lacrosse, and played for Team USA when I could, and played for Harvard. I actually took 2 years off from Harvard to go and try to make the Olympic team. And I feel very fortunate that I was successful in doing that, and played in the first Olympics that included women's hockey. We won the first ever gold medal in 1998 in Nagano, Japan. It was an incredible ride. I could talk for hours on that. I won't do that because I don't know that people want to hear all about it. But
how old were you?
At that point I was 22. Okay. So I was originally supposed to graduate from college in 1997. And then the summer of 96, I was actually at a Team USA camp up in Lake Placid, New York. And the coach, who was going to be the Olympic coach, his name is Ben Smith, pulled me aside and he said, I can't tell you to take time off from school. I can't promise you a spot on the Olympic team. We're still 2 years out, year and a half out. But he said, your weaknesses, you can't address your weaknesses if you go back to college. You need to really focus on your physical development. He said, you've got the skills, you've got the head, the hockey IQ, but you don't have the strength. And so you need to spend a lot of time basically just getting stronger and more fit. And you can't do that when you're also trying to go to Harvard. So I had the tough decision in August of 1996. Do I take this year off with no guarantees to make the Olympic team? And then if I did make even the traveling team, I'd take the next year off. So I'd take 2 years off from college, and I only had a year left of my academics. And it was so close to my senior year. So our assistant coach at the time, a guy named David Quinn, who's actually the head coach of the New York Rangers right now, he said to me, if you are destined to not make the Olympic team, you won't make it. You're going to be sitting on the couch at home watching your friends, your former teammates compete for gold in Nagano, Japan, wearing a Team USA jersey. If you're not there, don't you want to make sure that you have no regrets? And that was so powerful to me to say, you know what, I want to be there more than anything. But if I don't want to look back and think, if only I had taken that time, if only I had taken the, suggestion here and there. So I made the really hard decision to take the year off, and I had nowhere to live. I wasn't making any money. I was very fortunate. My parents helped out a lot. My sister had just graduated from Harvard and she was living in Boston. So I stayed with her. I sort of bunked with my roommates. I slept on couches, and I trained with a guy named Mike Boyle, and he completely changed my game and went on and it worked out for me, and I made the team. And who knows if I would have made the team if I didn't make that, but I'm glad I don't have to find out.
That's it speaks to so much, but one of the things that's coming into my mind is that importance of both, like, your parents, coaches, and the trainers, like the importance of having people in your life that have helped fuel your own sort of inner understanding that you can do these things, right?
But they also, the people that have supported me have also supported me taking risks. And that's a really hard thing for people. And now as a mom watching my kids go through it, and there's small risks and there's big risks, and there's small rewards and there's big rewards, and there's failure along the way. And so I think that was the biggest thing, is that I knew that I had people that no matter what happened, if I wasn't going to make that team, I still had people that would support the fact that I took that risk. And who knows? And if I had failed, I'd failed. They still loved me. They still supported me. And I still would have learned something from that journey. And, speaking of failure, I went back to Harvard. We had a fantastic year my senior year. I competed. We won the national title in 1999, but then I kept competing with Team USA, and we went to Salt Lake City, where we were the heavy favorites to defend our gold medal on home soil. And we choked, and we lost to Canada, and we won a silver. So it's hard for me to say we failed, but we did, because it was our goal was gold or nothing. And we fell short of that goal. And it still feels like we lost gold. It's really hard for me to say we won silver, because it doesn't feel that way. And I learned so much from that. If I could go back in time, I'd still win the gold. However, I will say that there's a lot you can learn from trying, from risking something and working really hard. And we didn't work any less hard in 2002, but we didn't succeed in fulfilling our goal. So it's an interesting thing. And as you said, I mean, support along the way is so important. I go back to being the only girl on a boys team. I never felt targeted. I mean, maybe by our opponents, but I had support. I had support in my teammates in the locker room, on the ice. And, sometimes they would be young boys, right? And they would say dumb things, and they weren't using their words to tell me how great it was that I was in there. And, but if somebody on the other team targeted me and tried to take a big hit at me or caught me and hit me hard, I had everybody on the bench and the ice going after that guy, and they wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't come over and ask me if I was okay. That was not the way the relationship worked, but I knew they would defend me.
That's very cool. If you had to pick, well, I think of two things. One is when you talked about all of those people, Brene Brown has this thing that I read somewhere about square squad, having your square squad. So it's a 1 inch by 1 inch piece of paper that you put the people whose opinions matter most to you and who are going to be there for you through success and failures and push you outside of your comfort zone and support you along the way. And I think, she talks about carry it with you, carry it in your wallet. And she uses the Roosevelt quote of, it's not the critic who counts. It's, getting in the arena and giving it a go. So I think about that. I think, wow, you have this very neat square squad of people of all ages and in different parts of your life that you sort of were able to carry along with you.
Absolutely. I've never heard of that. I like that. I think that's a very cool thing to know that. I mean, I've met a ton of people, tremendous people too, wonderful people through my career of playing and now into broadcasting. But it's, if you try to fit in on one's, a small piece of paper, there are people that will have your back in any situation, and it's important to know who they are.
That's awesome. So before we get to the gold medal, can you share, if you had to pick something that you learned from the failure, from the, as you call it, from the losing gold, what do you think that would be?
The biggest lesson, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That's a hard one. I think that one thing that comes to mind, and if I really put some thought into this, I maybe will come up with something else, or maybe say it a little more eloquently, but that, there's a cliche quote that it's about the journey and not the destination. It took me a while, but that's really what I felt like, that it really was about the journey. And like I said, we didn't work any less hard, and arguably we worked harder in 2002 because we had a taste of it and we wanted it back, and we knew what it took, and we knew Canada was working just as hard, if not harder. So we were motivated. So sometimes you can do everything right. You can work, I don't necessarily look back and have any regrets. I mean, if I could go back, I'd like a puck bounce here or a play here or whatever. But in general, in the lead up to Salt Lake in 2002, I don't think there were any regrets. Back to the advice I got from Quinny, that if you're sitting on the couch or if you lose or whatever, you don't want to have any regrets. I don't have any. We worked really hard. My teammates and I, we, mentally, physically, we did what we were supposed to do, just didn't work out for us. And so I think that that's one of the biggest lessons, is risking, putting yourself out there and risking. It doesn't mean, and working your tail off and doing everything right, doesn't mean you're actually going to succeed. And then that's okay. And what do you learn from that? How do you move forward? And, I knew when my now 14-year-old daughter was 4, she was at preschool and she was driving with a friend, or, another mom was driving her, and this friend of this mom had just found out that I had played in the Olympics. And she said to my daughter, that's so cool that your mom has a gold and a silver medal. And my little 4-year-old said, the fact that she said, a silver medal just means she lost. And it was so funny. And it's a story that's been told that, I'm so competitive and everything, but it hit me. It struck me that I was like, that's the message I'm sending to my kids, is that I succeeded and I failed. And they see it as very very black and white. And it taught me to change it a little bit, that I played in the Olympics twice and I have 2 medals, and I'm very proud of both of them for different reasons. And so I think that, I don't know if I'm answering your question directly, but it's that you can do everything right and you still may not succeed, and you just have to move on and try to learn from it.
I think that's great. That's such good advice. All right, take us to 98. Tell us something about it. You know, it sounds like you could talk for hours on this, but share a little bit. Give us a taste of what that is like, and these young girls that are, you know, part of our programs or watching or listening to you here. You know, just tell us a little bit about. It's like everyone's dream to be in the Olympics. You know,
Well,
tell us what it was like.
That's what it was. It was absolutely living a dream, and it was something that. They didn't even announce women's hockey was going to be in the Olympics until 1992. I was a junior in high school. So that's sort of funny that people say, was that your lifelong dream? Well, not really. I mean, yes, the Olympics, absolutely. I loved the Olympics, but I loved sports as a kid. So yeah, I wanted to compete in the Olympics. Was I going to be I don't know, gymnast? Was it probably not with my size? Was I going to be a skier? I just wanted to be in the Olympics. I loved it. And then as I got older and I got really into hockey, I wanted to play in the NHL. And then I wanted to play in college. There were all these different dreams that I had. So, you know, Nagano, Japan is Japan's an amazing country. So it was awesome to be over there. It was so far away that it was a small group that was supporting us, which is sort of cool. Everybody's, you know, had at least one family member there, but, you know, fast forward to Salt Lake and tons of people were there, which is amazing too, in a different way. But it was such a unique, intimate group of supporters for us. That was pretty fun. When I used to speak to groups after we won, in 98, I would always say, you know, who watched the game? And I remember the time where I would start saying that and somebody said, oh, I wasn't born yet. I was like, oh gosh. Okay. So now, you know, 22 years later, I never ask that anymore because I'm usually talking to youth groups and they're like, I was born, you know, whatever. So 1998 was a long time ago. And it's funny to see the footage, non-HD, and you go back through all that. But my memories, my 3 favorite things about the Olympics, one was the opening ceremonies. The opening ceremony is so amazing because it's all the athletes, the parade of nations, right? You get to go in and it's alphabetical except the host country gets to go last. So we were the last country in the Winter Games that went before Japan, and all of the U.S. athletes are wearing the same thing, and you're issued it. And it's such an amazing feeling to look around and say, I am a member of Team USA. And we had been a member of you know, the U.S. national women's hockey team, which is a tremendous amount of pride, and you're wearing that USA jersey. But to look around and realize you're part of something even bigger than that was so overwhelming. I get chills even just saying it. And there was this tunnel that we walked through, and you walk out into this arena. And in Japan, they did it on a Saturday morning because of basically U.S. TV rights wanted it on a Friday night. They wanted it prime time, and we were 13 or 14 hours ahead. So it was a Saturday morning, and we're marching. It was bright daylight, and we're all wearing cowboy hats and these long blue I mean, you know, sort of a silly outfit, but we're so unified. And that was the moment that I thought, wow, I'm an Olympian. I mean, it hit us, and it was so. It's hard to put words to that moment. And I got to do it with my teammates who were, you know, my closest friends at the time. And, you know, the other thing that I love is the Olympic Village, because all of the Olympic athletes stay in the village. I shouldn't say that. Some of them don't. Like Michelle Kwan didn't, because it was so distracting, and it's an individual sport. Terry Lipinski did, though. And so it's just, you know, individual athletes could make that decision. We stayed there. All of the U.S. athletes stayed in one building. So we had one dorm to ourselves. And of course we looked out and we looked across to Canada, and their whole building was just splattered with Canadian flags. So I woke up to that every morning, which was very motivating. And at the time, with the political stuff going on, we weren't allowed to have any U.S. flags just because of stuff going on that they didn't want to heighten where the U.S. athletes were staying for security reasons. So our building couldn't have anything on it, which sort of seemed silly at the time. You could tell which one was the American building. But the fact that you would go into the cafeteria and all of the athletes would be in there. It was so wild, and you could tell by what they were wearing, which country they were from, and we would have a little game, try to imagine what sport they were. And then it was very friendly and very, you know, as competitive and as crazy maybe as athletes can be. It was such a feeling of camaraderie in there, because no matter where they were from or what sport they were, we were all Olympians. And it was a really, really cool thing. And my third, of course, is winning the gold medal, because you can't, I mean, I 22 years later, I still can't put words to it. And I've seen some footage of it, and I even at the time, it was almost like my body went into shock. I don't remember some of the things. Like even I watched some footage recently, and I picked up one of my teammates and was skating around. I mean, she was little. It was just, I don't remember doing some of that stuff. And my whole family was there. My husband, we weren't married at the time, but my husband was able to be over there. So I feel very fortunate that they were able to be there and witness what an incredible moment that was for me, for our team, and all the stuff that I'd put into it. So, then you have the closing ceremonies, which are much less serious. I don't want to say the opening ceremonies are somber, but it's intense. The closing ceremonies are a giant party. I mean, everybody is just dancing and having a good time. You can wear what you want. So it was an amazing experience. We were there for 5 days after we won the gold, and were able to see other events, which was really special. The morning after we won, we were photographed to be on the Wheaties box. I actually wasn't allowed to be on it because of NCAA rules. So 4 of us were not in the picture, can't be on the box. And we have it framed, actually. And my kids asked me just the other day, said, "Why'd you frame this? You're not even in the picture." But it's my team. So it was, again, I could go on and on, but it was a special moment in time. It's a special bond. I still keep up. We have a text chain with my 98 teammates, and we talk all the time. We have Zooms now during this pandemic. So I feel very fortunate. I don't know. I know I worked really hard to get there, but a lot of people worked really hard. So whatever, the cards fell right for me, and I will be forever grateful.
How do you think that your team really has laid the foundation for women's hockey? Because that was the first team to be it's the first time women's hockey was in the Olympics, and for you all to come home with gold. Like, how do you feel like that's laid the foundation for the rest of us?
Yeah, it's interesting. So in 2018, the women, the U.S. won again, which was incredible. I was there. I was broadcasting. I can't even tell you how moving that was. And my family was actually in Korea, and I love that my kids got to see it and experience it, knowing that I'd gone through. It's obviously different but similar. And you hear from the girls now, and there's a lot of girls playing hockey, and there's a lot of girls programs, still not as many as boys. And you'll hear from the current Team USA players who have grown up playing boys hockey, or they, girls that now play on boys teams. And you hear that like, oh, there just weren't options. There are options now. There really weren't options when I was growing up. And I mean, it's not that we chose the boys was a better program or this or stronger or this, whatever it is that families or players choose to play on a boys team over a girls team. There just weren't options then. So I think that's one of the biggest things. It just opened up people's eyes to the fact that girls play this sport, and that they can play it well. And, for us I spoke to a group on Cape Cod before I went over. It was in December. It was when I was home for a couple of days over Christmas of '97. And I spoke to a school, it was Centerville Elementary School, and it was like K through 5th grade. And I had them all in there, and I was talking about going to the Olympics at the time, and I was so excited. And they thought it was pretty cool, but I think they didn't really process it. I asked how many of them played hockey, and a couple of the boys raised their hands. Not a single girl did. And I went back in March with my gold medal and talked to the same crew. And when I asked the same question, everybody's hands raised. I'm going to play next year. I'm going to play next year. Whether they did or didn't, the fact that it was an opportunity, an option, and something that the girls considered. And, there's something now, a phrase that I love is, if you can see it, you can dream it, you can be it. And that is so important for a generation of girls to have seen women playing hockey and playing in the Olympics and winning a gold medal. And, I've seen pictures of Megan Duggan, who's the captain of Team USA right now, with Cami Granato and with Gretchen Julian. They're both, actually the picture was with Duggan and Gretchen Julian. They're both Mass natives. And, same thing with the Lamoureux twins, have a picture. They're on that team in 2018 with Lisa Brown Miller, one of my teammates. And they're little. I mean, they're little girls. And Kendall Coyne Schofield has a picture with Cami Granato. They're both from Chicago. So there's real tangible evidence that what our team did allowed a whole nother generation of girls to dream of that. And then honestly take the game to new levels, new heights. I mean, what they've done it's amazing. The speed, the everything that they do is incredible. So I think that our team did lay the foundation, and of course this next crew has soared to new heights with it. But I'm very proud of what our team was able to do.
That's awesome, and this is a great segue into what you're doing right now. And so if you could talk a little bit, I guess, about your job now. And I think it's another space where it maybe mimics a little bit your career athletically, and also you're in this space now where you're showing girls that they can be in there as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind. I mean, it's interesting. I work in broadcasting now. I'm on TV talking about hockey. I'm an analyst. I get to break down plays and talk about the sport I love. So it's really a dream job in a lot of ways. I like to talk. If anybody who's listening in, you can hear it's sort of a marriage made in heaven for me, talking about a sport I love. So I was I retired from competitive play in 2003. I had a baby later in 2003, and then wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I thought maybe coaching, or, there were a variety of things. And I got a call from NBC in the spring of 2005 asking if I wanted to be the color commentator for the Torino games. I wanted to come in and audition for that job. And first they asked me this. It was Molly Solomon, and she's still at NBC. And she said, have you ever thought about broadcasting? And my knee-jerk reaction is yes. Yeah, I've thought that would be really fun. Not once had I thought about it. It hadn't crossed my mind, hadn't thought about it. So I always tell people who are thinking about getting into broadcasting or whatever they're doing, just say yes, try it, and you never know. And it's, another way to say, just act as if, and you walk through, and you may not know what you're doing. Ask questions. I was very intimidated and insecure at the beginning, so I didn't ask enough questions, and that is one regret early on in my broadcasting career. So I went down for an audition, and they put in the gold medal game from Salt Lake, which we had lost in heartbreaking fashion. And I had to sit through it and analyze it as if it was live. And it was painful. And I was with Doc Emmerich, who is now a dear friend and colleague of mine and one of my favorite people in the world. But at the time, he's just this intimidating, this is Mike Emmerich. I mean, he's a legend. And so it was awful. I was sweating. I thank God I was wearing a blazer, because I was a mess. And I left there thinking, back to playing days, you take a risk and you don't always succeed. And I was sure that was the shortest broadcasting career in history. And for whatever reason, they saw potential in me, and they told me that that I was raw. I needed some work, but that they thought I could do a good job of this, and they hired me. And they sent me over to Torino in 2006. I was very pregnant with my second child. I was due in April, and I was there the whole month of February. And so the wardrobe situation was not, again, there are not many women that do this. There are women in sports. And I think what I have to explain to people a lot is that as an analyst, it's an unusual position for a female to be. There are female reporters. There are now a couple of female play-by-play. I'm surprised there aren't more female play-by-play. And for people looking to get into this sport, I think that's a great way to do it. To be an analyst, you're supposed to be the expert, right? And so up until this point, there weren't many women that had played at the high level. So here, now there are more. Kendall Coyne-Schofield's doing some work too, and some of the other players have gotten into broadcasting as well. But the time, there aren't many women doing this job. And so I'm working with men. And again, it does mirror my career playing, because I worked with awesome men. I worked with great guys who didn't make me feel less than. They didn't make me feel that I didn't belong there. They didn't, and I'm not just talking about the guys on camera, the guys in the truck and the producers and the directors and all those people that put this show on made me feel like I belonged there. And again, I wish I had asked more questions. That's my only regret, because they would use these terms, and I would just nod in these production meetings thinking, I obviously should know what that means. And I didn't. I think the other thing that appealed to me about broadcasting, and still does, is the teamwork. And I've always been a team sport athlete. And I love the idea that, you see me on camera and my partner, whoever it may be, but behind the scenes, there's a giant crew that's making this work, and we all work together. And in Torino, actually, there was a stats guy that gave me a stat. Sitting right next to me, wrote on a piece of paper something that was appropriate to what I was talking about. And I looked at him and I smiled, and I put the piece of paper down and kept going. At the next commercial break, he said, "Why didn't you use that?" And I said, "Well, that was your stat. I'm not going to steal it from you." And right as it came out of my mouth, I realized what an idiot I sounded like. And he looked at me and said, "I don't have a microphone. That's my job, is to give you the information so that you can say it." And he's like, "If you don't say it, then I look bad." When I got my bosses saying, "Why isn't the stats guy giving her this information?" So it really is a team. And, I think that's something I ended up having more kids. So I worked in Torino in 2006. I worked in Vancouver in 2010. I worked in Sochi in 2014. And then I actually did summer games. I did field hockey in 2016, and then Pyeongchang in 2018. And at that point I'd done some college men's hockey and some sled hockey, which I loved. And then it wasn't until the spring of 2018 that I really got into doing full-time NHL, doing the playoffs. And I was the first woman to be in the booth, to be an analyst in an NHL playoff game in 2018.
And part of the all-women's crew that was on International Women's Day. Do you want to share what was your favorite part about that experience, maybe?
Yeah, so that was really cool. NBC, and actually the same day, Sportsnet, which is a Canadian company, did similar things. And March 8th is International Women's Day, so they put together their Canadian female crew, and NBC put together our female crew. And the coolest thing about that broadcast to me was that NBC had almost everybody on staff who do these jobs, whatever their job is. They do it every day. They do it all the time. They just don't do it generally with a whole team full of women. The only exception was Kate Scott, who did the play-by-play, and she was phenomenal. She was so good. But she is a play-by-play. That's what she does. She lives out in California. She just hadn't done hockey before, so she worked her tail off and practiced, and she totally knocked my socks off. She was amazing. And so we had Kendall Coyne-Schofield, myself as the analysts. In the studio, we had Catherine Tappan and Jennifer Bottrell, who was a Harvard teammate of mine and a Canadian adversary of mine, as the studio analyst. But then the coolest thing is the whole truck was women. Renee Hatlelid was a producer. Lisa Seltzer is a legendary director. She was actually my first director in Torino. She's amazing and a mentor of mine. And the camera operators were women. So all behind the scenes were women. What was hard for me is that there was so much attention given to it, which is wonderful, because it was a big deal and it was unprecedented. But I just wanted to call the game like normal. And it was a really busy day because people were giving us so much attention that we were so busy. We couldn't actually prepare for the game the way that I'm like an athlete. I have my preparation, I have my routine, and I like to go through it. And we had a ton of interviews and all these things, which is great. But I also hope that if it happens again, I hope that it's normal. I hope that we don't have to give it the attention. It's a fine line. It's a hard balance to celebrate it, but not make it such an anomaly that we feel like we need to make a big deal of it. So, and I think that, again, everybody does this, and this is my job. This is what I do. I happen to do it with other women, and all these women I've worked with before. Everybody on the show was a woman, and it was, we squeaked it in right before the pandemic really hit and we went on lockdown. So I feel I'm glad that we did.
Awesome. All right. 3 quick questions. Well, they're kind of big questions, but we'll see if we can make them quick. So first one, what would be a message that you would want to give? I mean, you have daughters as well, but if you are imagining, a message for young girls that are interested in sport. I mean, you've mentioned so many things, multiple sports, and taking risks and, being okay with failure, and it's about the process. I mean, you've mentioned so much stuff in there, but is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you would want to make sure that through your experience and wisdom that girls get to hear?
I would say that right now, especially during the pandemic, I've thought about this because my daughters are 16 and 14, and they're trying to stay in shape and do things. And we've talked a little bit about it. If it feels like a job, then you're doing it wrong. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean that it should all be fun and laughter and this is awesome and I'm dying to do it, because you have to work hard and you have to go through pain to build muscle, right? It hurts to do squats. It can be sort of a pain if if you have a really good shot, but you're not a very good stick handler. Of course you want to work on your shot. It's fun. You're good at it. And working on your stick handling maybe isn't as fun, but try to make it as fun as you can and set up little competitions for yourself. And everybody's, again, wired a little bit differently. Maybe it's competitions with yourself. Maybe it's competitions with a teammate or a sibling. But I think that that's the most important, is that if you're into a sport or you're trying to get into a sport, make sure it's fun. If it's not fun as a kid, then I just don't think it's for you, that particular sport. Maybe it's something else, or maybe change the way you're approaching it. I think that all the others, it's hard. You want work ethic though. So it is hard to sit there and say, oh, it's got to be all roses. No, it's hard work. But if at the end of the day, you're still having fun with it and you can see yourself improving, then something's going right.
Awesome. And then I think I know the answer to this question, but something we ask all of our college athletes to share before they help us out with some workouts with our young kids is to share their favorite sports memory. Do we know what your favorite sports memory is, or do you have something different?
I mean, I think the obvious one is winning the gold. So yes, that is my favorite sports memory. It's really tough to top that. A year later, my Harvard team went 33-1, and we won the national title, the only national title that Harvard women's hockey so far has won. So that was a pretty awesome memory. You know, I will say that generally speaking, my favorite memories are the small ones, though, are the locker room shenanigans and the road trips. And obviously we were older, so we had, we were flying all over, going to Europe and China and places like that. So we had a lot of time together. But even looking back at my high school career and my college career, the wins are amazing. And again, the gold medal is at the top of the list, but remembering the relationships and being in a locker room with my teammates, and even if they weren't going to be my best friends, and if we didn't play hockey together, we may have been acquaintances and not necessarily friends. If you're in a locker room and you're unified by a common goal to win that game or win the tournament or whatever it may be, that's a really special thing. And I took it for granted, and I wish I didn't, because those are my favorite memories.
That's actually it's a really common thing that I've been hearing a lot. It's those like, the workouts that were kind of unique, but together, and the locker room, a lot of stuff about locker room, and missing those of us that were once in sport and on a team. And you started with this, how important team was to you. So, and now finding jobs, for me as well, finding a job that is part of a team becomes just like a lifelong thing.
It's hard. It's a wonderful thing, but it's hard to find the right fit. But when you do, it's appreciate it, right? Like with anything, I think that right now we're all appreciating things in our life that we probably did take for granted.
That's right. All right, last one for the parents. Can you talk about MFJ?
I can. So it's really my husband's baby. I can't take credit for it. And my kids are forever embarrassed by this, but I guess that's our job as parents, right? Is to embarrass our children. We purchased a bus, and we gutted it, and we made it into an RV, and we named it Mandatory Family Joy, MFJ. And we use it for RVs and RV trips in the summer, and we've done all that. But we found actually that the most use we get out of it is taking teams. So we throw soccer, hockey, lacrosse. What other sports have we done? Where we just throw them all in. We actually made we call it the locker room. There's about 4 feet in the back. We put all the bags or gear or whatever we have, and load up the kids and take them to games or tournaments. And we have so it's a school bus. It legitimately was a school bus. So it doesn't really like going over 60 miles an hour. So we won't take it to really far. Like a 2 or 3 hour trip is probably about perfect. And it's so fun. I mean, I was just talking about the memories I have are the road trips in the locker room with my teammates. So we're offering that to our kids and their youth teams. And my daughter, last year, she was a freshman on the lacrosse team, and they made it to their state tournament. So we actually loaded up the school. We can't take the kids on the bus because of the high school, the insurance reasons. So we loaded up all the parents, and we decorated the bus, and it was we took them down to the tournament games, and it's been really fun. Again, our kids are embarrassed by it, but I mean, what good are we as parents? Don't embarrass them.
I love it. I think we're gonna institute MFJ days or something, like a day of the week.
It is good, and they will. Yeah, it's been really fun. And actually, during this pandemic, my husband has outfitted it to be his office. He's got a screen on there, and that's where he goes and does his work. So it's I'm not working right now because the NHL is on pause, so I'm home. Kids are home trying to do their homeschool, and he for a while was inside, and it's really hard to try to keep everybody quiet. So the fact that he has his own space and his little man town out there, it's perfect.
So great. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your story. It's such an inspiration. And also I just love that girls we can pull up the video footage from '98 for all of these girls that were not born then, but then they also get to still follow you in the sport in a different way now. So I appreciate your being here.
Well, thank you. It's always fun to talk about this stuff. I love when I do get a chance to talk to young girls and understand that, hockey's an option, but the whole idea is not that people have to play hockey or not that they have to go into broadcasting. It's that it's how cool that it's an option. And, that women's broadcast you were talking about, it goes back to, if you see it, you can dream it, you can be it. If you want to get involved in the production side and you now know that women are there doing it, and it's pretty cool. There's so many opportunities available.